All right. Well, if you like astrology and predictions, you are in the right spot today. Welcome, everybody. I'm Dallisa Hocking. I'm a fifth generation psychic medium, and I'm joined today by Scott Tejerian of theweeklytransit.com, the podcaster, the author, the astrologer. And he is no stranger to my YouTube channel. And today we actually have a live Zoom audience that's joining us from all over the United States, as well as Canada, New Zealand, and everywhere in between. So we just want to say thank you to everybody that's joining us on our live Zoom audience today. And if you want to be a part of future audiences, you can check out my work at spiritandspark.com. Spot,
Yes,
how you doing?
I'm doing well. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is fun. I find that our conversations together are some of the most popular videos and content that's consumed on my YouTube channel.
Oh, cool.
People love when we sit down and talk about the psychic predictions, the
Hmm.
astrology, what's coming up, how to navigate and move through it. Today, we have a full list of things that we're talking about. So, we're going to be going over the astrology of the rest of this year, 2025, just some big transits that you're seeing, what I'm seeing
Hmm.
psychically in the energy. We're going to be
Hmm.
talking about the financial system, also about UFOs. We had a question about whether that's going to be coming into the forefront. The US presidential election. Are we going to be entering World War III? Is there anything that points to that in the predictions and the astrology? Yeah, let's see. Oh, and how can we prepare and get ready for it all?
Yes, that's
Just
it.
just a few light topics. Just a few light topics. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like I feel like this would be a video that if I were sitting there watching it, I would want
Hmm.
to have pen and paper
Hmm.
because there's going to be so much that I feel is going to come out of this conversation today, that it's something you'll probably not only want to refer back to in the coming months and the year ahead, but also um, it could be something really fascinating 10 years, 20 years from now to look back at your notes before all of these different things start unfolding in the world and just see, how far you've come as an individual and how far the world has come, because I feel like it's going to be changing so rapidly. So, should we get started with our first topic?
Let's do it, Delisa. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, I want to take a look at the astrology and anything that you're seeing for the rest of 24 and 25 that you are pointing to as things that may be hot buttons or astrology that we'd want to pay attention to. So, can you start there?
Yeah, well, I would say the main one for me is the Mars retrograde that's happening. I mean, Mars just moved into its retrograde shadow yesterday, and it's going to keep transiting through. It's at 17 degrees in Cancer. It's going to keep moving through into Leo. And on December 6th, it will be at 6 degrees in Leo. And that's when the retrograde begins. And that will carry into next year. And so, when you think of Mars, it's the planet of action, aggression, conflict, courage. It's a circle of spirit with an arrow pointed in a clear direction, symbolizing your eternal soul and the direction that is moving without thinking. And so it's our impulse, it's our instincts transiting through Cancer. This is the cardinal water sign symbolized by the crab, that goofy sideways walking creature with a hard outer shell and a soft inner core that lives by the beach and is very determined to get to where it needs to go in order to continue its family lineage. So it's ruled, Cancer is ruled by the moon, which is the planet of emotions. It represents the home. So, when Mars is in Cancer, it brings some agitation to the home life potentially. It can bring discomfort to the home or conflicts within the home. And All of this is meant to draw you back to your past because Cancer is the sign that represents the past. As I said before, it's ruled by the moon. The moon reflects the light of the sun. Therefore, the light that is emanating off of the moon is literally past light. So the moon represents your past, your roots, your upbringing, your childhood, the ones who raised and nurtured you, and your ancestors. So when you think of Mars transiting through Cancer, whether or not there's disruption happening in your home, and throughout this time, undoubtedly, I imagine there will be, but whatever is occurring is meant to draw you to your past, to have the courage to investigate your past, your roots. Where do you come from? And what do I need to do to make peace with my past? And so, like, just remembering that, like this physical body, like every single one of you who's listening out there, just remember that there's so much power in your physical body, so much power. There is energy that is being channeled through you from previous lifetimes to you, from your ancestors. You know, it's coming down through the blood in you, and you are here now in the physical realm, and it's your opportunity to make peace with whatever conflicts were that began back in your ancestry further than you even know existed. This is a time to sort of rewrite your story and to learn to have more kindness towards yourself, to be more caring towards yourself and to those that you are connected to. You know, when Mars moves into Leo, that's the fixed fire sign symbolized by the lion. Leo rules the heart. Cancer rules the breasts and the stomach. So Cancer is about, what are you feeding yourself? Who are you feeding? And Leo is opening your heart. Well, in order to open your heart fully, you must be nurtured. And so, how are you nurturing yourself so that you can truly find that joy and that bliss that is a part of life? I'll leave it there for now. How's that feel to you, Dallisa?
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. I often feel like when you talk about the transits and the planets and their placements, it's poetic,
Mm.
because it helps us. There's like this storytelling element to it, which I appreciate. When you were talking about the home, couple things flashed in. One was the changes to the housing market and real estate,
Mm.
and how I do think I just heard the word crunch in my clairvoyance or clairaudience. This crunch feeling that there will be upheaval and changes to the real estate and where people will move. I think that more people will be moving from where they're at right now into different locations. But I also was hearing, as you said, home, the United States or your home country,
Mm.
that there's this correlation to what you identify as your home.
Mm.
So I was feeling it on a couple of different levels there.
Yes, well, when you think about real estate, the sign that rules real estate is Capricorn. And one of the other transits to think about as we close out 2024 is Pluto's final transit through Capricorn. It's not going to be back in Capricorn until I think 2254. I think I'd have to check my notes, but it's going to be another 240 some years. So uh this is this is the final degree. And the final degree is kind of like the pressure of popping a zit. It feels very intense, and then there's this eruption. But Capricorn is the sign that rules real estate. It's the cardinal earth sign, symbolized by the goat and ruled by Saturn, the god of wealth and time. When Pluto moved into Capricorn in 08, 09, that was the real estate market crashed. And that was the first time that Pluto had transited into Capricorn since it had been there, which was 1762 to 1778. So we've been going through this revolution of our relationship to authority and needing to take responsibility for ourselves. Capricorn's an earth sign, so it rules land, it rules real estate. And so I've been expecting, but it hasn't happened. Maybe it does happen in the next 6 weeks, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I was thinking that maybe there'll be another real estate crash or correction uh, in in these last days of Pluto transiting through Capricorn. And people that I've talked to that are in the real estate market or in the financial markets concur with my perspective, but it hasn't happened. So you never really know what's going to happen. We can make our predictions, and they're as educated as they are, but there's so much going on that is not, it's not within our purview. Like there's these transits happening right now with Pluto and Capricorn aligning with Neptune and Pisces, which are both aligning with Uranus and Taurus. And I went back and looked all the way back to 13,000 BC, which was like is as far back as the ephemeris goes on astro.com. And so that is I couldn't find another time where these three planets were aligning in the way that they're aligning right now in these three charts, or in these three signs. The last time I saw them in these three signs at the same time was like about 9,000 BC. And I could be wrong. Maybe if you comb through the ephemeris, you could find a time. But I mean, it kind of feels like this is one of those, like this is a once in a 25,000 year occurrence where where this is happening. So I mean, we can make predictions all day, but there's certain things that we're not necessarily seeing because we haven't seen them in our recorded history.
Yeah. So what I hear is that what we're going to be going through is like nothing that has been experienced before. So
Mm,
it's trying to
exactly.
plan, it's trying to plan for something that at least humans that would have any kind of warning for us, um, nobody in like recent history um, has really walked in those shoes. But and I say what I just said because of what I was flashed at clairvoyantly is some of the ancient ruins
Mm.
and some of these ancient civilizations. As the words were coming out of my mouth, it feels like there have been things like this that we're going to be experiencing that have happened in ancient times, and that it was through different modes and means that we'll be going through, but there will be some overlap and some similarities. And so some of these ancient civilizations and ruins that have been more recently excavated and discussed feels like it holds more clues that maybe we'll figure out later, but that there is some overlap there. So I don't feel like as a psychic I could say nobody in the history of the planet Earth has been through anything like this before, because I do feel like it has, but nothing that we've really been able in modern history to wrap our arms around.
Right. I mean, I think that if I'm not saying that it hasn't happened before. It probably has, but we don't know about it. It's like it's not in our recorded history. And so I think the most important takeaway from understanding these transits, especially Pluto and Capricorn, Neptune and Pisces, and Uranus and Taurus, is to understand what the language tells us, what the language of astrology tells us. And Pluto is the planet of transformation. Capricorn is the sign of responsibility. Neptune is the planet of dreams and fantasy, the unconscious. Pisces is the sign that's ruled by Neptune, so it reflects that energy, that frequency. And Uranus is the planet of revolution, rebellion, independence, the unexpected. Taurus, the sign that it's transiting through, is the sign of security. So we're going through a revolution of our personal security so that we can revolutionize our values, our self-worth. The Neptune is reimagining the dream of who we are, of delving into the unconscious and facing the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame that exists within us, so that we can integrate those thought patterns and memories with understanding, forgiveness and love through showing ourselves compassion for the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame. When you can show yourself compassion and for the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame, and forgive yourself, then you reimagine the dream, and the fantasy feels more attainable. It's like, I do deserve something great. I do deserve for my dreams to come true. And then when you're in that point, now you're revolutionizing, or I don't can't even speak. You're having a revolution with your self-worth and your values, and your foundation of who you are is elevated from where you were before, and now your goals and ambitions have transformed because they're more attainable. You're like, I was shooting too low. I need to shoot higher. I need to aim higher because I deserve more. And that's what these planets are really urging us to do right now. So when you look around the world and you see the chaos and the suffering and fear and all of that, it's meant to pull you away from this the glory that we're meant to receive for ourselves. But it's also maybe meant to wake you up and to help you realize that you deserve more than what you're being offered.
Yeah, beautifully said. I would love your perspective on as you look at 2025. And I know we're going to get
Mm-hmm.
into the specifics with these
Mm-hmm.
questions that we're going to unpack.
Yeah.
But
So, yeah,
yeah, I was going to say
20.
before you and I jumped on, you gave a great analogy of the sheep
What did I say?
and
The what?
scaring and the herd
Oh,
and
the hurt.
scare.
Yes,
So
yes,
I would
yes.
love for you to share that with the audience before you
Yes.
say what you're getting for 2025.
Okay. Yes. So, I know that there's a common sentiment of people, that see me, that come to me, and we've had questions for this reading, this conversation, that like, when are things going to get better? When are they going to get better? And it's like, again, you are so powerful. I want you all to recognize how powerful you are. I want you to appreciate yourself. They will get better when you work with the energy that is being offered to you, which is what we're describing here right now, what I just said, the planetary energy. The planets, the astrology, God, the universe, none of it is against you. None of it is against you. It's all for you. And sometimes it doesn't feel good. And the reason is because you're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong frequency. And so, you know, there there's questions about, is there going to be World War III? Is there going to be, do I need to start saving up for food? And yes, everything's on the table. Everything's on the table right now. War, natural disasters, manufactured disasters, uh, stolen elections, all these different things. Like, everything's on the table. Viruses, famine, everything. But mankind has lived through this all before. We know that. And so can you live through it again. And so it's all how you're working with the energy. And you have to understand that these events happen because, there's powers that be. There's 8 billion people on planet Earth, and there's a very few amount of people that are all controlling the people. There's 400 million people in the United States, and there's a few people that are controlling that herd. We are the cattle. We're the herd. And so when the herd starts to get harder to control, you have to be more dramatic to keep the herd together. And it can be through everything that I just listed, but it can also be through political leaders sharing information in the way that they need to be shared. Like, I had a friend who was super hyped up about RFK and, was even excited when he joined forces with Donald Trump. And the reason why he was so excited is because he's saying things that are different than what the other politicians are saying. And I said, yes, that's great, but he's also still a part of one of the power brokers. He's not some random person here. He's a Kennedy. And so, when there's people that are speaking differently than the herd, and the people that are controlling the herd need everyone to be a part of the herd, then they send somebody out to talk like those other people to bring them back into the herd. So, what you need to do is really focus on your individuality. That is what this is about. Chiron in Aries, the North Node in Aries, next year, Neptune moving into Aries. Who are you? Who are you? With Pluto moving into Aquarius on November 19th, where it's going to be for the next 20 years, ruled by Uranus, which is the planet of independence. There's a high and a low frequency to every sign, to every planet. It's up to you, the individual, to work with the energy from the high frequency rather than the low frequency. The low frequency of Aquarius is, well, you don't talk like me, you don't walk like me, you don't look like me, you don't think like me, you don't do like me. There's something wrong with you. That's the low frequency. The high frequency of Aquarius is, hey, we're all individuals. That's what makes this world a great place, is that everybody is coming from their own unique perspective, and everyone's own unique perspective has value, even if it's in contradiction to my perspective, because their perspective is going to help challenge me. And when you have that challenge, it creates something new, that friction. It's like sex. Friction happens and you create a baby. It creates something new. So we need to be open to the newness. We need to be open to individuality, to being unusual, to being different than everyone else, and to accepting the differences of everyone else. If we're in that frequency, then there's nothing that the controllers can do to keep the herd together. Right now, they're struggling to keep up and they know everything that's going on that I'm talking about right now. They know all of this stuff. And so they're working with the energy to keep people where they need to keep them. And they're not doing it necessarily from this place of like, nefarious, these evil people that are they're doing it to, it's just like the cattle rancher isn't doing it to harm the herd. The cattle rancher wants to keep the herd together, because if one strays, they might, fall over a ravine and die. And now the rancher loses that cow, loses that money. They're doing it for what they think is their highest good too. But we need to maintain that frequency of rising up. It's like when the United States became a new country, it didn't, the United States didn't win a war. They didn't win the American Revolution. They won a settlement. Like England decided they didn't want to do this anymore. It's like, it's costing us too much money, it's too much loss of life. So you can be on your own now. Fine, you can be on your own. But if you fall out of line and you start acting like a bunch of animals, then we'll come back in and we'll take control. And that's where we are now, where the powers that be have taken control because the people have gotten out of line. So we have to learn how to take responsibility for ourselves. We need to empower ourselves. We need to love ourselves and love our fellow man.
All right. So let's think about 2025. So, as a psychic turning on all of my sensitivities, the world can be this heavy energy. Sometimes as I sit and look out the window at the world, it feels like almost a sandpaper, like a grittiness to it. And I have to really be mindful of the energy that I'm putting myself into, protecting my energy, clearing it, having really good boundaries, not being afraid to say, I think I'm going to skip that event. I'm going to stay
Mhm.
home and take care of myself tonight. So as that heaviness just sits like this fog, I feel like over the world, and I think it has a lot to do with me feeling what's coming first before it actually happens. So if we think about the astrology for 2025, what do you feel or what do you see in the charts that is that vibe or frequency for 2025?
The vibe or frequency is a major awakening. There's several planets that are transiting into new signs. Of course, this year is when, on November 19th, 2024, is when Pluto transits into Aquarius, where it will be for the next 20 years. We've already experienced some of that over the last year and a half or so. But next year, 2025, is when Neptune moves into Aries for a bit. Saturn also moves into Aries for a bit. And Uranus moves into Gemini for a bit as well. So we're dipping our toes into these new frequencies. And I've been talking about for years Neptune transiting through Pisces, where it began its transit in 2011, 2012, has been an awakening to our unconscious. I mean, you've just seen, like, it's so interesting to me when the world reflects the planets in these signs, because when you think back to 2011, 2012, there were words and phrases that did not exist or did not exist in the way that we use them now, such as woke, triggered, binge watching, doom scrolling, Netflix and chill. These didn't exist before 2011, 2012. Of course, we knew the word woke, we knew the word triggered, but we didn't know it in the way that we know it now. The way that we know it now is Piscean, because Pisces is the dream. It's the unconscious. And so Neptune transiting through Pisces has been uh, transiting through to awaken us to what is going on beneath the surface of our minds, where we keep our guilt, our shame, our regret, our blame. Now, it's down there in our unconscious. We've put it down there for a reason, because we don't want to deal with it. And so, what do we do to not deal with it? Well, Pisces is symbolized by the fish. And we all know the phrase, drink like a fish. So Pisces rules drugs and alcohol. So what have we seen since 2011, 2012? The rise in the opioid epidemic, the legalization of cannabis en masse. They even advertise hard alcohol on TV now. They didn't do that back in the day. You could only have printed ads in magazines. So there's also, like, the dream, the fantasy is also Pisces. So when you think about the Netflix and chill, or the fact that, like, if you go back to 2011, 2012, how many superhero movies, how many Star Wars movies have come out in the last 12 years? There's been more in the last 12 years than the last 50, 100 years before that. At the beginning of film, you could go back to the beginning of the first film, and there's less superhero movies or Star Wars movies from the beginning of film to 2012 than there have been for the last 12 years. Now there's arenas watching people play video games. Like, we are so ingrained in the fantasy. There is deep fake. Deep fake, that's another new word. Deep fake, where it's like you're watching Tom Cruise on a screen or Keanu Reeves, but it's not really them. but it looks exactly like them. It sounds exactly like them. So we are being pulled into the fantasy. We are wanting to draw ourselves into the fantasy because we don't want to be triggered. We're feeling triggered by the pain and suffering of other people. It's awakening the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame within us, and we want to ignore it. But we can't ignore it. We're not supposed to ignore it. What we need to do is we need to go within our unconscious and show ourselves compassion for the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame, so we can integrate those thought patterns and memories with understanding, forgiveness, and love. Now, what I've been saying over the last few years is like, we need to do this now because in 2025, when Neptune and Saturn transit into Aries at the same time, all of your psychological baggage that you haven't dealt with is going to be pushed out into the middle of the road in the dumpster and lit on fire. And that's not necessarily you. Maybe you're doing the work, but there's a lot of people out there that aren't doing the work. And so there's going to be this dumpster fire in the middle of the road where people and their psychological baggage that they haven't dealt with, they're going to be unleashing it on the public. And so is there going to be a war in 2025? I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's already a war going on right now in the Middle East and Ukraine and all these other places. Why not here? So I just feel like the intensity is going to continue to elevate. And so the way that you navigate that is to be more aware and conscious of who you are and love yourself for who you are. Because all these people out there say, well, I want peace. I want peace. Peace begins with you. If you're at war with yourself, then you can't expect peace in your relationships. And if you're not at peace in your relationships, then you can't expect other people out there in the world to also be at peace. You are creating the ripple effect. It starts with you, but it's not you outside there doing something. It's you inside here doing something. That's the work.
Yes. And the dumpster fire, as Anita says in the comments of our live Zoom audience, that is a vivid picture you are painting. I
Mm.
agree. I think we can all imagine all of our external or internal baggage being projected outside, and the chaos and fighting and war energy that would bring about. What I was hearing, there was a few things I was jotting down as you were sharing that, Scott. One of them is there is a war inside us, and that war inside of us is that ripple. I was on an Instagram live yesterday, and they showed it like a flat rock that you skip over calm water, and it's that ripple that keeps
Mhm.
going. Um, One thing that I want to note about what you were saying about the numbing and the um, Neptune placement, working as a professional medium, I've seen more and more people that have passed recently of drug overdoses that are coming through in sessions, more
Mm.
so than I've ever seen in my career. Um, so the overdosing and the numbing is very much a part of that. And Neptune going into Aries, my mind doesn't even know. Like, I just feel like this, in my brain when I think about Neptune and Saturn going into Aries. The other thing is, as you were speaking, and this has happened to me frequently
Mm.
over probably the last month or so at this point. When you were speaking, I started getting my alarm. So through my right ear, I'll get words and sounds. And I keep hearing this like national alarm going off. Like, imagine like the emergency broadcast system. And so I'm hearing this alarm. And then I saw this like explosion. So I do think that there's an increase to war, and we're going to talk about that in a minute while we start going through our questions. but I feel a lot of the volatility of that inner going out and being expressed in the external world to add to the alarm message. So I was getting it so often that one night, of course, before I'm going to bed, going to sleep, I'm like, let's just dig into this a little bit. And so I finally asked Spirit, what are you trying to show me with this alarm? Because I just keep getting like, whoop. And they showed me, which is my angels, spirit guides, ancestors, since I'm fifth generation. Um, they showed me airplanes, military airplanes. And I was having dinner with a friend of mine who has a military background. And she said, oh, well, what branch? I have no idea. And I said, oh, they looked like the jets in Top Gun. And
Mm.
she goes, oh, that's Navy. That's not good. Like,
Mm.
well, and I live where I overlook a bay. And I say that for context because there is a military base right near where I live. And I can see military aircraft
Mm.
that appear to be doing routes or some kind of practice more so than I've ever seen here. And I live in like a plaza where there's shops and restaurants. And I was outside of a coffee shop. This was a couple of weeks ago. And these military helicopters went right over the top of the plaza, so close to where people were walking around. But the download I got when I saw it is, oh, they're practicing a route, like they're running a drill. So them flying so low near a building or people like that was actually very intentional. And a few months ago, I was laying in my bed, fast asleep, and in the middle of the night, I could feel some kind of craft above my building where I felt like my whole energy was like a vortex, like came out and like went back in, kind of like how you would maybe imagine being sucked up in a UFO or something like that. But I think it's some of the crafts that are around here that are running these drills, and I was feeling the effects of that. So I just wanted to make mention of it because I think it's important to some of these 2025 themes that we're going to be diving into.
It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. So yeah, I mean, the Neptune Saturn conjunction moving into Aries, it just feels like uh, it's going to be so important for each of us to be mindful when we leave our house and not I'm not saying that in terms of like to protect yourself from war that's happening outside your house, but just your own energy, your own like protecting yourself energetically. Like if you're people are going to be so hot triggered. So if you are not in that place of peace, then it might be really easy for you to start a fire with somebody else when you're out there in the world. Uh, because your tension and their tension creates that combustion. So, how can we find peace within ourselves? Where is there imbalance in our lives that needs to be adjusted? That's what's happening. That's what Aries is really, with Chiron in Aries, Saturn and Neptune are going to be in Aries. It's it's rebalancing the scales in an aggressive manner.
Okay. So the other thing I'm hearing that I want to make mention to is this is going to be a time where your intuition is going to be more critical than it's ever been before. And taking care of yourself, as Scott's been talking about, and doing your meditations and journaling and and filling up your own energetic cup and aligning with that vibration inside of yourself that does have that kindness, compassion, peace, right? That will keep you at an elevated state, and the frequency, the vibration will be high enough that your intuition will be clearer. And so if you're thinking about going to that farmer's market and you're like, gosh, something just doesn't feel right about it, stay home, stay home. But with that, if you're practicing these mindfulness techniques and using your tools, you will feel when it's a drop in. You'll feel when it's, oh, I'm getting an intuitive hit on this. Because if you're not doing those mindfulness practices and you're just going through life and trying to just make it all work and you're a bit chaotic or overwhelmed in your energy, it could be anxiety that you're feeling, or feeling the anxiousness or anger in some of the people in the world, where you might confuse that or feel like that could be your intuition telling you not to go outside. So when we're working on our own internal compass, you'll feel when it's your intuition versus anxiety or something of that nature.
Yes, and I I think that's going to be the big challenge, is working on that internal compass, especially Saturn in Aries, because Saturn is the planet of work, responsibility in Aries. Saturn in Aries means it's going to be really, really difficult to focus on yourself. There's also, Uranus in Gemini is going to be aligning with these points. I feel like 2025 it's so interesting. Like, this just came to me right now. Like, when you think of 2020 and COVID, and then 2025 is going to be kind of like the antithesis to 2020, where 2020, everybody was inside, hardly anybody was out. 2025, everyone's going to be out. There's going to be way more people out in the world, active, doing things around. And I think this is why more things are going to happen in terms of conflicts or challenges, or all those, I don't want to go, deaths, that sort of stuff, because more people are out. So there's more opportunity for disasters or terrorist acts or anything like that to happen. And I think because of that, that is what is going to make it even more difficult for people to really focus on themselves. Because if you see a group of people suffering, your attention is going to be on that group of people and not on yourself. And so it's going to be very important for you to remain present where you are. There is no place like the present, and that is not just in time, but in terms of space, where you are. If you're in a home and you're safe, like everyone on this call is right now, then that's where you need to be focused. That's where your attention needs to be focused. Because if you're allowing yourself to pull out into that chaos, then you're going to be sucked into it. I always get the vision these days with the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where God wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because it was a heathenistic place. And the angels said, not Lot and his family. They're righteous. We want to get them out. And he's like, okay, you can get them out, but then I'm destroying the rest of that place. And the angels tell Lot and his family, whatever you do, don't look back. Because if you look back, you will get drawn into the chaos and we can't save you. And Lot's wife looked back and she perished. So you're going to need to remain focused on yourself, looking forward and remembering that this is Earth. This is the most beautiful, horrible place that we can imagine right now. And so be where you are. Be where you are and make the best of where you are. because where you are is where you're meant to be. And if you are living a life that's safe and happy and healthy, then live a life that's safe and happy and healthy. And that will generate that ripple that you were talking about, Dallisa, with the rock across the water. That ripple is love. And that is the ripple that needs to happen in order that you're going to be better off saving the world from where you are than going over there to try to make a difference. If it's like, oh, I got to join the war. Okay, then go ahead. And you might die if you're ready to do that. Uh, or you can be in love in the place where you are and allow that frequency to reach the war and save the people in that way. This is tapping into our true energy, the true power that we have within these limited capsules, our bodies.
Yeah. Woo. I feel like this is one of those videos that needs to be bookmarked and people can come back to and listen as a reminder as we start actually getting into some of these things that are happening. But I think it's a good home base. So I would recommend everybody saving this video and referring back to it. Let's start getting into some of these specific questions. And I don't think we necessarily have to spend a long time on each one, but I want to touch on if there is an astrological transit that connects in with the question or something that you're seeing. And then I'll share my psychic insight on that too.
Yes.
So let's start with, I know you've talked about Pluto being in Capricorn, how it will soon go into Aquarius and stay there for an extended period of time. So we had a question come in from one of our Zoom audience members about the financial system and anything that we see with money, crypto, stock market. Now, in case you didn't catch, Scott and I are not financial advisors. Do not take financial advice from us. But is there anything that you're seeing in the financial system? Because when I look at it, crypto for me, anytime I have ever pulled up the energy of crypto, it feels like sand just like seeping out of my fingers and I can't hold it. And I know that there's probably reasons why I feel that way, just about how crypto is and what it is. But I've never felt like I could project it into the future in a stable, concrete way. I think that the financial system is tied to foreign enemies that are looking at it as something to attack. I think there's going to be more and more cyber attacks that happen with banks. Depending on who you ask, some think that having your money in a large bank is better. Some people think having it in a credit union or a local bank is better. I would again use your intuition and do some homework around where your money is at and how much money do they have in reserves. What is their process if everyone shows up and wants to take their money out? What happens when ATMs don't work? But I think there's going to be more and more of a rise in issues around the technology as it pertains to money and money systems. So what do you see?
Well, crypto's here. It's not going anywhere. This has been the revolution. I think when crypto first came about, people were thinking that it was going to be like the savior of things, where it was going to be this new way of exchanging money without the government or these other entities controlling it. And as we've seen, they just come in and they adapt. This is the cattle rancher getting the herd back in order. Okay, these people are doing something different over here. We need to figure out how to bring them back into the herd. But this is all because of Uranus transiting through Taurus. It moved into Taurus back in 2019. And next year it transits into Gemini, but then it transits back into Taurus and it doesn't fully move into Gemini until 26. So it's about a 7-year period Uranus transiting through Taurus. Now, the last time the Uranus transited through Taurus was 1935 to 1942, which was during the Great Depression. The time before that was 1851 to 1858, which was during the gold rush. So you can see the threads here, the themes. The gold rush transformed how we deal with money. The depression transformed how we deal with money. This transit of Uranus through Taurus is changing or revolutionizing how we deal with money. And that's all that it is. It's revolutionizing how we deal with money. Crypto's here. It's being integrated into the banks and the blockchain and all that sort of stuff. And, I really feel like Uranus aligning with Saturn and Neptune, like there's going to be technological advancements that come into fruition a year from now, October 5th, 2025, there's going to be something with technology that exists where if you were to tell us about it right now, we'd be like, oh my God, what? Really that? How's that even possible? There's going to be a revolution to technology that's going to come into reality that's going to shift the way that we think about ourselves and the way that we share and exchange ideas. And when you think of Uranus in Gemini, Gemini is ruled by Mercury. People think of money as Taurus and Venus, and yes, it's that because Venus and Taurus, that's values, that's self-worth. But Gemini and Mercury, that's also has to do with money because Mercury is the god of merchants and thieves. So it may be a time to just be a little wary about where you're putting your money, who you're exchanging it with. Like I think of when Uranus was in Gemini, which was during the end of World War II, and just think about how much wealth was stolen in World War II. I mean, people lost everything, and where did it go? It didn't just like disappear. I mean, some of it did through bombs and that sort of stuff, but a lot was stolen from people during that time. And so, yeah, maybe it has something to do with AI. I don't know, but just hold on to your hats and really get clear about what you have value in, like what you were saying, Delisa, like do your research. Like, where am I putting my money? Uranus in Gemini, Gemini is about curiosity. We need to ask questions. We need to gather information. What is best for me? What is going to make me feel more secure and more valued? And I think the underlining factor of this all always is, are you reacting out of fear or are you responding from a place of love? If you're in that fear frequency, then it's probably the wrong choice.
Yeah. It makes sense as I look at that vision of like feeling like I couldn't hold crypto. So when you were speaking about it just now, I saw it as like these little like flashes of lightning. So it's this very like fast, high pitched frequency when it comes to the future of finances. And what I was hearing also is the dollar will become non existent. And so I feel like there's going to be this massive overhaul of how we keep our money, how we use our money. And I feel like it's going to happen so fast, just like those little streaks of lightning that I was just being shown. So,
Totally. I could totally see that happening. I mean, what does the dollar mean anyway? It doesn't really mean it. Like they exchange the dollars they exchange gold for dollars. And so it used to be that dollar meant a dollar's worth of gold. What does it mean now? It doesn't mean a dollar's worth of gold. It really means nothing. It's just a piece of paper. And so what's different between having a piece of paper that means nothing and just having a number in your phone that means also nothing, except for whatever we say it means? So we are headed to that point because the powers, again, they want to keep the herd together. They want to know where your money's going, where are you spending it, but it all looks so good because it's for convenience. I'll just Venmo you, I'll just send you a Zelle. I mean, I don't need to write you a check or anything like that, or give you cash. I can just zap it to you.
True. True
Yes,
story.
it's
Yeah.
convenient.
Yeah. And
There-
those,
There's a there's a
yeah.
stadium in not far from where I live. Like, this is the future. This stadium. It's the Intuit Dome, which is built by Steve Ballmer, who's one of the richest men in the world. He was the CEO of Microsoft. He is worth, I don't know, $200 billion, and he built this stadium for his basketball team, the Clippers. And this stadium he built out of his own pocket. He's a benevolent billionaire. He did it. He made sure that all the construction crews that were working on the arena were minority owned. That they were like a certain percentage of them were minority owned. A certain percentage were local. And redid all the infrastructure around the arena to the city's specifications, and he paid for it so that there would be traffic flow and it wouldn't be bogged down. The city didn't pay for anything. There's community spaces outside the arena. He even put in the arena, there's a basketball jersey for every single high school in California because he's about the community. But the thing is, and this is the interesting thing, and it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and it all has to do with convenience too, where like the bathrooms, like the NBA, which the Clippers are a part of, there's a certain number of bathrooms that have to be in every arena. Steve Ballmer did that times 10 because he doesn't want anybody to have to wait in line for the bathroom and miss a minute of the game. But there's no tickets, there's no money, there's no credit cards, there's no nothing. You download the app, you take a picture of yourself, you put your credit card information in the app, and when you walk to the arena, there's cameras watching you. You go and you get a beer, you get a hot dog, you get whatever food you want, you get a jersey, a t-shirt, a basketball. You just take it and you walk out. You don't pay for it. You don't hand anybody any money, nothing. They're tracking you and they're seeing what you're taking and they're debiting your account. That's the future, and it's now.
Yeah. Welcome to the future is what I was hearing. And the other thing I was going to mention that I was hearing was that free apps aren't free. So, pay attention to what you're using and how you're using it and what data they have. And
there's
yeah,
like the stadium that's next to the Intuit Dome, SoFi, which is where the Rams play. I went to a game there. The first time I went to a game there, I got an email from them. They're like, "Do you want a picture of yourself at the game?" I was like, "What?" And you can go on their website, and there's 60,000 people there, and you can zoom in to my face as clear as it looks right now, and every single person in the arena. So that's our world that we live in. And it's going to be that way when you go to the grocery store within the
yep,
next 5 years.
I agree. I agree. And I think because of all of what you just mentioned, great examples, I think there will be some people that are like, not me, and they will try to avoid it as long as they can. And I
Of
think
course.
that may have something to do with Mars and Cancer and the placement of where home is. And
Mm-hmm.
people may be moving to places that are more rural, or they might live in a state that has more regulations around data and AI. So I've been saying for a while now, where you live, the state in the US that you live in is going to play such a big role in what your future is like. So it could be
Mm-hmm.
part of the reason people start moving around a little bit. Um,
Mm.
I want to move on to a quick question that it's probably not a quick question, but for our sake today, let's make it. But there's been some discussion around religion and spirituality, and like that duality perhaps of where organized religion, churches, like, will those become more popular? Will they have a rise of this organized religion? Will there be more spiritual practitioners? Will they collide? Just feels like in the energy that there's two groups. And I think some people go to church that are very spiritual. So I know that that's not a blanket statement, of course, but it feels in the energy that there's a bit of a war, a battle brewing when it comes to the place of religion in society, who's going to church, who's not, um, giving money to churches. And I see it all the time on social media, unfortunately, but people attacking astrologers and psychics and, um, talking about how we're the spawn of Satan and all of these things. So, is
We
there
are.
any? I know. Um, so, is there anything in the astrology that points to an increase or elevation in organized religion, um, or the belief in God, or anything like that?
Well, I think that this could be maybe part of the lower frequency of the Pluto and Aquarius, and not to say that religion is a low frequency, because it's not. It's both. It's high, it's low. It all depends on whoever's in the religion, how they're working with the energy, what's in their heart. But Aquarius is all about the group, the club, the organization, and so you can throw religions into being a part of a group. Aquarius is symbolized by the water bear. The water bear invented the jug not for themselves, but for the village. And so Pluto in Aquarius is going to transform what these groups mean to us. And when you think about where Pluto was from 1995 to 2008, it was in Sagittarius. So all those people that were born from 95 to '08 are now in their adulthood or about to be in their adulthood. And they are the ones that are here to transform faith, belief, religion, spirituality, theology. That is part of their role on this planet. Those that were born from 95 to '08 is to transform religion, spirituality, theology, belief, faith, so that we can all be more free, so that we can see things from a broader, clearer perspective, that is more honest and open and truthful.
Mm.
Yes.
I'm being taken back to your comment earlier about the dumpster fire
Hmm.
and the high frequency, low frequency. And so, if there are these groups, and there will be groups that are spiritual, different religions, and if that low frequency dumpster fire energy is being elevated within the group,
Hmm.
then they may want to go and fight another group, to prove their point or to have some kind of validation about their beliefs. And so it wouldn't surprise me, and I'm glad that the astrology points to that possibility as well, that more and more groups will potentially collide more to try to prove their point. But that would be more on that low frequency side.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, but when I was telling Scott before we jumped on, when I look at the collective, and I try to like really narrow in on one question or one topic, there's all of these like piles of energy that are all like being dumped into the collective. And so I think there's just going to be so many different things that are going to be happening that are going to be coming into our awareness, which goes back to everything that we've been talking about thus far about that inner compass. But thanks for pointing to that in regards to the groups and religion and spirituality. Okay.
Can I say one more
Yeah,
thing about this? Because
absolutely.
I so I think it's like, because you brought up how, like religions will often look to people like us as, the spawn of Satan. Um, And I totally, totally get that. I think it's important for people like us to, because when you talk about these groups clashing, like, we don't want to be a part of that. Like, I had an experience happen to me a couple months ago. I was at my 30-year high school reunion, and I grew up in a very religious household, Protestant, Christian, Presbyterian church, all through my life. Not the earlier on, it was different. It was Armenian church, Orthodox, but then more like later, from like 10 to 18, was like heavy in this church. And I reconnected with this woman who was a girl my age when, she's a woman my age now, but at the reunion. And I was telling her what I was doing with astrology. And she was like, "How can you do that?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Because of what it says in the Bible." And I said, "Well, what does it say in the Bible?" And so she gave me the quote in Isaiah, where uh, Isaiah is writing to, or I think Paul, I can't remember who it is. I think it's Paul's writing to the Babylonians and is saying, that they shouldn't be using this because they're using it. It's, to me, it reads like he's telling them that they are shunning God for this. And I told her, I'm like, that is a very specific note. He is talking to the Babylonians. First of all, I'm not Babylonian. I'm Armenian American, and so he's not talking to me. And the way that I'm using this is not in contrast or conflict to God. I can see how people do that because I have great power. People come to me and they are very vulnerable with me. Whatever I tell them, they're taking this in as like gospel. And so I have to be very discerning with myself in how I'm sharing this information so that it is empowering those that I'm sharing it to. And if you are empowering people, then you are in that higher frequency. And I told her that, and she was like, "Wow, thank you so much for not just, talking down about my religion." And I was like, "I would never do that.
Yeah.
I know that you have this great faith, and that is for you, and that's great for you. And I support that in you. It's not about what I believe versus what you believe." And this goes back to that higher frequency of Aquarius. You want to believe that? Go be you. And I'm going to believe that, and let me believe what I want to believe. And that's it. Like, just everyone, we're all stuck here together. Let's be good neighbors to each other.
Yeah, I just heard Spirit say, the God in me honors the God in you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh, we got to stick together. All right, we got to move on to the next
Yes,
question.
let's
So
do it.
I love this question, by the
Mhm.
way.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Please tell me, Scott, that there's going to be more revealed about UFOs and what that
Uh-huh.
looks like, and how us humans will be impacted by it. Because, like I shared about the military crafts around here, I've had different experiences with galactic beings and spirit form when I've done some client sessions. Because usually it's angels, guides, or departed loved ones that step in, and every once in a while there'll be a galactic being that comes in. And so it's been interesting working with that energy. I also have heard in different research and interviews that people that have psychic abilities and the families that have um, like real psychic abilities that run through the lineage, that they often have UFO experiences or abductee or missing time.
Mhm.
In my family, there's been experiences like that. Um, so I think some people are wondering, like, when is the UFO like coming down through the clouds and landing over like a big city? And are some of us going to go on board? Like, and I would love to hear your thoughts on, is this Uranus? Is this Aquarius? Like, is there anything that points to us finding out more about our origin, or if these beings are really around?
Well, I would first of all be very, very wary of anything that comes out about UFOs from the mainstream,
Mm,
just because I don't trust it. I mean, it's not that I don't believe in UFOs or aliens. I mean, I certainly do believe that they're out there and they're doing whatever they're doing. And I believe that, our souls as human beings, they come from other places. And some maybe might be come from here, but I think a lot come from off planet, other galaxies and that sort of stuff. But I I think that maybe there's going to be greater awareness. I think there always seems to be greater awareness, but I would just be wary of what's coming out from the mainstream because it feels like there's if it comes from the mainstream because the mainstream has known about this, right? For a long time. It's not going to be news to them. So why are they suddenly sharing it with us? They're trying to distract us from something, or they're trying to manipulate us, or they're trying to keep the herd in a certain direction. That's why. So that's where I stand on that. I feel
yeah.
like, yeah, we already
We
know.
and we could do our own communication with galactic beings, whether it's another race of beings or humans in the future. Like, we can sit, and even at night, if we get away from cities and all the light pollution, like, we can sit and stargaze and bring our attention out into the universe and bring our consciousness out there, and we can connect and we can see different crafts and communicate with beings, and it's all a frequency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the frequency. And so if you're in that, if you want to attract like that benevolent alien that is, going to save the planet, then you need to vibrate at the frequency of that benevolent alien. If you're vibrating at a lower frequency through drugs and alcohol or or those sorts of things, then maybe the lower frequency of alien is going to come and abduct you. So it is all the frequency. And they will reveal themselves when we're at the frequency that they're able to reveal themselves to us at.
Yeah. I mean, they could be literally in front of us right now. And if,
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
there's been reports of people that have seen aliens and different beings in different cities and locations. And I think it's because they're at that right radio frequency where their eyes can actually see, or clairvoyance, what that being is or where they're at or what they look like. And yeah, frequency is what unlocks, I think, everything.
Mm.
And so I think, and I'm hearing right now as I say that there will be a lot of medical cures and advancements that will be healed through frequency and
Hmm.
that vibration. So I think,
Yes.
as much as there's going to be all of these different components that could feel like a dumpster fire, on the other side of that, there is also this huge opening, I feel, in the energy for different diseases, to be cured and for people to be healthier and live longer than they've ever lived before.
Yes.
So there's that too that comes in with this.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that all comes through what we've been talking about. What is your frequency at? Are you vibrating of the frequency at the frequency of fear and lack and anger and hate? Or are you vibrating at the frequency of love and peace within yourself? There's so much goodness to be received in
Mm-hmm.
2025 and beyond through that frequency.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when people reflect back on 2020, 2021, and you ask people, how was it for you through the lockdowns and everything that was happening around that?
Mhm.
And some people have said it was the best I've ever had it in my life. And
That
I
was the
got so
best year of my
clear.
life. That
Yeah.
2020 was the best year of my life.
Wow.
It was the best. I mean, now's the best year of my life, but 2020 at that time was the best year of my life.
Mhm.
My life went through a revolution. I was so grateful. That's how we have to navigate. People live through wars. People live through famines. People live through disasters. Be one of those people. Love yourself, celebrate yourself, harness your gifts, share your gifts, stay in that frequency, and good things will happen.
Yeah, and I believe in humans and the resiliency of humans. And I've had a lot of people reach out recently saying, you're telling me to stock up on food and water and pet supplies and prescription medications and things like that, but I can't even afford food right now. So how do I even get myself prepared for that? And it's trying to bring them back into that space of knowing that humans, I believe, are innately good
Mhm.
and that there will be food. There will be people helping people. You look at what's happening with natural disasters that happen around the world, and people coming together that have nothing, that have lost everything, but they make it through it and they help each other. And so even if the worst thing happens, we will figure it out. And I would like humans to keep coming together and being kind to their neighbors and giving extra food and extra supplies. And that's what I believe is going to matter, at the core of all of this is one hand reaching out to another hand. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's
Yeah.
Aquarius at the highest frequency is looking out for your neighbor, looking out for your neighbor.
We've got Autumn in the Zoom live audience saying, I would be so psyched to meet some aliens.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I agree. I think we're going to now go into some very serious topics. Not like we haven't been
Yeah,
approaching those.
exactly. We're going to move out of the light topics now and into the serious topics.
Depends on how
Great.
you look at it. At least we can laugh about it.
Yeah.
So, if I had $1 for every person that's asked me who's going to win the U.S. presidential election, I would have so much. I wouldn't be on here right now. I'd be like cruising off in the Bahamas somewhere on a boat.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, right?
Yeah. So
You'd be
let's just,
rich.
yes, we're just going to dive into this. I'll share what I've been getting psychically about
Hmm.
the prediction. I want to also look at if there's any energy specifically in a moment, Scott, about election day itself in November,
Hmm.
or anything about inauguration day in January,
Hmm.
and any kinds of potential delays, because I have looked at this in every direction I could possibly think of. And
Hmm.
here's what I've come up with.
Yes.
I believe personally that our life on earth is a mix of fate and free will. Okay.
Hmm.
And so the destiny point in the election in the US actually feels like it's after the quote unquote election in November. Okay. Because either way I look at it, if I see Kamala winning, then I feel and sense the psychic information about revolution from the other side and people trying to take down the government, trying to overthrow the government. It would make the insurrection look like nothing. Okay. So
Exactly.
that's what I get on that side of it.
Yes.
If I look at the other side of the equation, with Trump being elected, unfortunately, it feels like they try a third time, if you know what I mean. And I
Hmm.
don't think that they will allow him to stay in office. Okay.
Hmm.
So then that creates a revolution. So it's like
Hmm.
both directions
Lead to the same path,
leads to
same
the same
place.
thing.
Hmm.
Leads to the same thing. I
Exactly.
also feel a lot of volatility on election day itself.
Hmm.
If I keep getting like a push, like a delay, where I don't even think we don't know that night. We don't know in the days to come. It feels like it could be held up. Um, it doesn't feel like a normal inauguration day, which is interestingly on MLK Day in
Mm,
2025. So I've even looked at narrowing in on MLK Day, and I feel a lot of volatility in the energy on that day as well.
mm,
Um, so I just keep getting pauses and really big fighting and disruption around the
mm,
election. I do think that there will be things that happen between now and election day that try to pull the herd in a certain direction, um, or try to manipulate where you can vote, who can vote. So there's a lot of upheaval between now and the election. So I'm very curious to see what you see.
So where do you want me to start? That's such a big
Why don't we start with the energy of election day, or like
election day.
leading up
Okay.
to that, like right around
Yeah.
there, whatever makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I'm just going to share the screen real quick so you can see what I'm looking at. So here's November 5th. I did it at like 11 o'clock at night because it's like after the election has happened, presumably it's over by then. But I see a lot of fire here, a lot of fire. There's Mercury and Venus in Sagittarius. There's the North Node in Chiron and Aries, where they are right now, and there's Mars, which will have just transited into Leo. So all three fire signs are active. That indicates a lot of extroverted energy, extroverted frequencies, fire, literally, maybe in the streets. People are upset. They're attacking each other. Who knows? Like that's just going to the extreme. Obviously, I don't want it to be that way, but what we're seeing here is Mercury forming a trine with the North Node. So Mercury in Sagittarius. This is the sign of truth and honesty. So people are going to be spitting their truth. People are going to be exerting who they are by saying who they are, showing who they are. Mars in Leo, that is acting from that heart centered place. So, on the lower frequency, yeah, there could be fighting in the streets or disruption. On the higher frequency, maybe people are feeling really good about who they voted for, or whatever side they voted for. Maybe we don't know who's won on this election day. Who knows? There's Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, which creates confusion. And Saturn is aligning with the Sun in Scorpio. Scorpio is the sign of secrets. So just seeing Saturn in Pisces aligning with the Sun in Scorpio says that maybe there is some secrets, something underhanded going on here, or we're unaware. There's some sort of confusion. The moon starts out early in the day, starts out in Sagittarius. I went too far here. It starts out in Sagittarius, or it starts out in Sagittarius and moves into Capricorn. So the beginning of the day could be very fiery until about 7 Pacific, or actually 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern is when the moon, between 7 and 8 and 10 and 11 Eastern is when the moon moves into Capricorn. That may bring about a sense of restriction in the later part of the day because Pluto, or the moon is in Capricorn, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which is the authority. So the moon and Pluto will be transiting through Capricorn during the later part of the day. It's something going on here with authority, transformation of authority. So that's pretty much what I see. Yeah.
Hmm. Do you want to talk about do you see anything for inauguration day?
Inauguration day. Okay, so let's look at January 20th, which, like you said, will also be MLK Day. And let's see. So that is January 20th, 2025, and happens maybe like 1 in the afternoon, let's say. Okay, so the the sun and Pluto are going to be conjunct in Aquarius. So transformation to the community, to the group, the club. Seeing this makes me feel like Kamala is going to be inaugurated on this day because it's unusual. A woman president, very unusual. And Uranus is the planetary ruler of Aquarius. Uranus is the planet of unusualness, different, non-conforming, outside the box. So the fact that the sun is conjunct Pluto tells me that it's going to, if it's not Kamala being inaugurated, then it's going to be an unusual inauguration in some way. Something unexpected maybe is going to happen on this inauguration. Maybe something unexpected happens if Kamala is being inaugurated. Maybe something unexpected if Trump is inaugurated. It's like maybe he's assassinated at the inauguration if it's Trump. Like, I mean, you could interpret it that way. The moon is in Libra on that day. So that is bringing emotional sensitivity to balance, harmony, equanimity, peace. So that makes me want to believe that it's going to be peaceful. But at the same time, in the early part of the day, the moon is squaring Mercury. And in the latter part of the day, the moon is squaring Mars. And so that indicates conflict to peace, conflict in communication that is disrupting peace. The authority is speaking in a way that is disrupting peace or acting in a way that is disrupting peace. The moon is also opposing Chiron, so it's bringing that emotional sensitivity to our fears and insecurities. And then there is the North Node, Neptune, Venus, and Saturn, all in Pisces. A lot of confusion. So something maybe there's some sort of disruption that happens on this day that creates a lot of confusion. People are pushing back against the authority. Yeah, I don't know. It's looking, you could look at this and say it's looking pretty wild. Mars is also, it's retrograde. It's aligning with Uranus. That's a sextile. That's a supportive aspect. But that is creating movement in terms of our self-worth, our values, and our home life.
Do you see anything in this chart or the one for the election that would point to someone else taking office besides Kamala or Trump? Like, for example, if Trump is taken out in some way and JD Vance were to step up. So is there a third party energy that comes into it? Because either way, I get to the same conclusion of the fighting and the aftermath. But do you think there's a third person that could step in?
Yeah, of course. Because I think of that because of the Aquarius frequency. The Aquarius frequency brings in the unusual. So yeah, maybe it's RFK Jr. Who knows? Like that's what Suzanne just wrote in the chat. It could be anything's on the anything and everything's on the table. The only thing that's not on the table is your usual run-of-the-mill inauguration. Like that is with the sun conjunct Pluto and Aquarius. It seems like whatever is happening is not going to be the norm.
Mm.
So maybe it's somebody being inaugurated who didn't run for president. Maybe it's Kamala, the first woman, being inaugurated for president. Maybe it's no inauguration is happening. Who knows? I mean, it's just expect the unexpected. That's what Aquarius and Uranus is about.
Yeah, yeah. And with MLK Day being the same day, it just feels like a recipe for a lot of volatility. So again,
Mhm.
trust your inner compass. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, because I even think that part of the aftermath in this will be around states really considering their connection to the United States of America and how different lines will be drawn and how the future of government will look or operate, who will run it and how. connections to the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. I think, as you said, like everything is possible and everything is on the table. But
Mhm.
I just don't think we come out of Aquarius or Pluto and Aquarius 20 years from now with what we have now. Like it feels
Yeah,
like it's going to be a complete overhaul to how
totally.
it's run.
Well,
Yeah.
just think about the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. You had the American Revolution, you had the French Revolution. Those are two major societies that completely transformed. So if it doesn't happen here, it's happening someplace on planet Earth where the way things are is going to be completely different. But even England completely transformed because they didn't have all this property in the United States any longer. So could states become their own sort of nation? I think that's definitely a possibility. But again, it goes back to the powers that be and wanting to keep the herd together. And so there may become a point where the powers that be decide that keeping the herd together actually is going to work better if we have these separate states, because those separate states will give the herd the illusion that they are different from this other state because they have a different set of rules, but they're still paying taxes. They're still following the same general rules that we want them to follow. Sure, there's some nuances that are a little different from one state to the next, but basically it's still the same. You're still under our thumb. You're still a part of the herd, even if you think that you aren't.
Mm, this man. Okay, let's move on to our next topic, and we're getting close to the end here. So, um, will we be pulled into World War III, and when does that energy of war spike? So, psychically, it's felt like we've been in World War III already, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels like we've already been pulled into that fold as the United States. I don't see it calming down or stopping anytime soon when we look at the Middle East or different countries that are going to start to get involved. It feels like it keeps growing.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that World War will be a part of our vocabulary. And whether or not the United States says that we're formally in a world war feels like it's up for debate right now. But I do still see fighting and missile launches. And I do unfortunately feel like there are a few world leaders that are really considering setting off some kind of nuclear weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like that's part of the conversation of where this could be going. But in terms of an energy spike, I would look more to astrology to give us an idea of when some of these potential doors could fling open. But it feels like we're already in it. And so
Yeah.
perhaps it's this escalation as we go through 24 and into 25. But Scott, is there anything in the energy that points to a bigger war or a spike in the intensity around it?
I think the spike in the intensity is going to happen with all of these planets transiting into new signs, like we talked about when Neptune and Saturn move uh, into Aries. So it's in March is when uh, actually, yeah, March, end of March is when Neptune moves into Aries, and then Saturn joins Neptune. That happens in May, is when it joins. They align with Pluto. When Mars finishes its transit through Leo, it's going to square Uranus. This one is one that really, will get me kind of bristling. Like, look out, like what's happening the first half of June, because that is when the god of war is squaring the planet of revolution. And that's a tense aspect. So, when we think back to when everything popped off in the Middle East, that was when the god of war was squaring the god of death, Pluto. And so, we could also look at when, we got to go back to this year. So, like this year, when here in November, this is right after the election, or actually right before the election, is when November 3rd, is when Mars opposes Pluto, the god of death opposing the god of war. There's some sort of tension happening here right on November 3rd, a couple days before the election. So maybe something happens before the election that causes the election to not even happen. Like, who knows? That's on the table. Then we go to the next time when it transited back. So right here is early January, is when Mars is opposing Pluto again. That's time number 2, the god of war opposing the god of death. I mean, I think it's like 3 explosions going off. 1, 2. So that's 2. And then here we go with part 3, is right here in April. April of 25 is when Mars opposes Pluto for the 3rd time. So one happens right before the election, the other one happens a couple weeks before the inauguration, and then the third one happens the second half of April. All of those are red flags for me. Mars opposing Pluto. Now, when we get to here is when Mars squares Uranus. That's another tense point, early June. So by this point, maybe things are escalating in terms of war or something along those lines. Then we get to here, and I don't know, this just feels like, something full on is happening, because there's just so much extroverted energy with the sun in Leo, Mercury retrograde in Leo, aligning with Uranus in Gemini, which is aligning, forming a trine with Pluto in Aquarius, forming a sextile to Neptune and Saturn in Aries. There's just a lot happening here. I mean, this is where I feel like everyone is out. Everyone is out. There's maybe people are marching in the streets. Maybe there's a full on war happening. I don't know. It's really, I really hesitate to speculate. And I just always try to focus on, what do I need to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to be doing to harness this energy at its highest frequency? And what I need to be doing the end of July, early August, is living with my heart open from that place of joy and authenticity, asking questions, gathering information, listening, learning, connecting in the group, the club, the organization, the social network, the social cause, finding my place. Where do I fit in? And how can I help? How can I bring that sense of joy and light to wherever I'm being called to?
Those dates are helpful. Just another reason why this video is to be bookmarked and referred back to as we start approaching these energies. So as we begin to close out today, we talked a lot, especially in the beginning of the video, about taking ownership of our own energy and the vibration and frequency that we're putting out into the world. And so I think that will be incredibly helpful as we navigate this, and to not be in fear around, do I have enough supplies? Have I gotten prepared enough? Like, I don't feel like going down a rabbit hole of fear and trying to control what happens and how it happens and when it happens is healthy. I think if having extra food, water, pet food, medications on hand feels empowering to you and feels like, yes, by me having this, I'll be able to care for myself and my neighbors. If it comes to that, then I think that's healthy. We've talked about meditation and even grounding your energy, journaling, anything that helps to fill your own cup. And clearing your energy, protecting it, all of those good things. So, with that in mind, Scott, is there anything else that you want to give as like final words or tips for people as we navigate these times ahead?
I mean, I think I've said it all. And I think you've said it all right there. I mean, it just all goes back uh, to empowering yourself, refraining from being a victim. It's going to be very, very hard not to be in that place when you see what's going on around you in the world. Just like COVID. I mean, there could be circumstances different than that, but maybe as extreme as that are occurring. But how can you maintain that place of inner peace and self-love and appreciation, and through that empowering those around you with love and peace? And I loved what you said about, like, if it feels good to go out and get food and medicine and all those sorts of things, then go and do that. But if you're doing it from that place of panic, then you're already in the wrong frequency. Like, you need to have the frequency that no matter what happens, I'm going to be good. Like, my big thing, like, I forgot to say this earlier, and so I'll say it now. Everyone's been asking me too, like, who's going to win the election? Who's going to win the election? And you know what I tell them? Me. Because whoever wins the United States presidential election, I'm going to thrive. I'm going to thrive regardless of who wins that presidential election, just like I'm going to thrive regardless of who wins the World Series or the Super Bowl or whatever race is going on out there in the public realm. I am going to thrive under all and any circumstances. And I hope that that is your attitude as well.
Amen. What a beautiful way to end our conversation. Woo, breathe that in, everybody. Breathe that. Woo. Yeah. So with that, I mean, Scott, I know you teach classes, you have one-on-one clients. I do the same. What's on your horizon?
All the same, just doing my podcast, The Weekly Transit, where I do that with Gabriella Durso, my partner. She is a psychotherapist, and so we mix astrology and psychology to discuss the weekly planetary transits and how to navigate that energy to the best of your ability. The moon cycle classes meet every moon cycle. There's one class for the new moon, another class for the full moon. You purchase that as a package, and you're in both classes. They're very small classes, so you interact with me like this, even where you're actually talking to me and I'm talking to you as well. And then, yeah, one-on-one clients. I love working. I'm a guide. I'm a guide that uses the language of astrology and elements of human design to help those who connect with me navigate their way through life, through self-empowerment, through helping you understand who you are so you can accept, appreciate, and love the divine, unique miracle that is you. I'm just going to keep doing more of that. And that's my work. It's what I love.
Yeah, yeah. And your astrology book is really good. All of Scott's information and how to connect with him is at theweeklytransit.com.
Yes.
I'm going to be teaching a psychic development certification levels 1 and 2. I've taught it before, but I haven't taught it in a while. So I'm going to be walking folks through how to increase their frequency, how to tune into their intuition, then also how to use different tools, aura readings, oracle cards. And then in level
Mm-hmm.
2, we're going to do remote viewing, where you can take your consciousness into a location and actually see it and pick up information. Mediumship, psychometry, which is holding an object and getting information. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm sending out the email in a few days. And so everybody should go put themselves on my email list, which is spiritandspark.com. And it's been a delight. Thank you again, Scott, for being here today, and to our
You're
live
welcome.
Zoom audience who is here with
Mm.
us. And we're looking forward to connecting with everybody again soon.